A very good evening. It's a scientific development that has created life. As many as 250,000 babies have been born in this country through IVF. But new figures suggest services are being cut back and in a patchwork fashion. Fertility campaigners say it's unfair, but one of the doctors behind the first use of IVF has told Sky News the treatment cannot be protected from financial reality. Here's Sky's Rebecca Williams.
Twins Olivia and Matthew Watts celebrating their first Christmas in Bristol after being born by in vitro fertilisation.
What would you like?
5 years on, and their mother Natasha describes them as a miracle. She had 2 rounds of IVF on the NHS, but Bristol, along with North Somerset and South Gloucestershire, could now become the first place to limit the treatment to those between the age of 30 and 35.
I think at any age you should be entitled to it. I mean, I was on the cusp. I was 35 when I had them, 34 when I started going through it. I think at any age, obviously the older you get, there are more risks, but I don't think there should be an age bracket on it at all. People have difficulties no matter what age they are. So no, I think it's wrong, completely wrong.
Current NICE guidelines state women should be offered 3 cycles of IVF on the NHS up to the age of 40 if they've been trying for a baby for at least 2 years. But figures suggest 13 areas in England have now restricted or halted funding since the start of the year. Croydon is the first London borough to completely axe funding, whilst Cheshire, Vale Royal and Swindon are set to cut funding from 3 cycles to 1. But there'll also be other areas affected across England, ranging from the Wirral to Barking and Dagenham.
What's the motility on this one?
The NHS is no doubt under pressure, with a year's treatment for 50,000 women costing around £325 million a year. Even one of the men who helped pioneer the technique admits that something has to give.
It's unfortunately necessary that the NHS does have an economic challenge and will be cutting back on IVF treatment. I accept that there will be a need to rationalise NHS spending. But if we're going to do this in terms of anything, and particularly IVF, which is not a local issue, it's a uniform health problem in terms of infertility, and it has a uniform solution, that needs to be offered equally and fairly across the nation.
Bristol's an area with so much history of the treatment. The world's first IVF baby is even from this city. At the moment, the treatment's carried out at the hospital behind me, but everything is up in the air, with the local commissioning group saying locally there is a deficit within the NHS and they need to live within their means. And that means many will have to foot the bill themselves. Women like Isabella, who spent £50,000 on IVF. She was refused treatment on the NHS because her partner had a child from a previous marriage.
It made me feel very unsupported and very disappointed. I think, the guidelines aren't particularly clear. And I think everyone just automatically assumes that they will qualify for 3 rounds of IVF, as NICE says, if they're below the age of 40. And, I don't think people know about all the details about, why they are denied it in some places.
NHS England said in a statement that decisions about IVF funding were down to local commissioning groups, who are under an obligation to balance the various competing demands on the NHS locally, while living within the budget that Parliament has allocated. IVF isn't a life-saving treatment, but for the likes of Natasha and Isabella, they say it's life-enhancing, which many consider priceless. Rebecca Williams, Sky News in Bristol.